The Elder Scrolls lore, the Merethic era. Hi, my name's Crazy Jamesy, and today we are going to be talking about the next era. If you're new to the channel, I'm currently doing a series going through the lore of the Elder Scrolls, breaking each era down into its own separate video. We did the Dawn era previous episode, and that will be up here at the top if you want to go watch that. However, for the rest of you, let's get right into it. And also don't forget, I'm looking to hit 100 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you like this video, make sure you subscribe, comment what you think down below, and leave a big old like. And thank you so much. Now without any further ado, let's get into this long video. This video is going to be probably a lot more longer than the previous one, due to there being so much to unpack in this Merethic era. And to basically summarize it, everybody and their mothers is either a narcissist or just straight up Giga Chad. Like, there's no in between in this era. Like, everybody is just got smoke, okay? Every single body in this era. I don't know what the heck they had in the waters back then, but them suckers chose violence. Now, it's important to note that a lot of the races that we know today straight up didn't exist in the Merethic era. As we stated in the previous video, this is the dawn of mortals, and basically everybody is getting their kingdoms up and running. Tamriel is basically nothing but elves right now. There is no men on Tamriel itself right now, at all. The only men that are around during this era are the Morans from Atmora and the Akaviri from Akavir. Those are the only two humans we know of that have existed since the Merethic era. And the ones that did not exist yet are the regular Nords, the Imperials didn't exist, the Bretons didn't exist, the Redguards didn't exist either, and the Orcs haven't, like, they are made in the Merethic era, but they don't exist quite yet either. So, a lot of races don't exist. And certain gods don't exist either, such as Sheogorath doesn't exist, Malakath doesn't exist yet, Marin's Dagon is not around yet, and Talos is not a thing yet, at all, during the Merethic era. These gods will come in later. And in terms of, like, how accurate Marin's Dagon's appearance in the Elder Scrolls is, it seems that he made his first appearances in the first era, because I could not find on any source that dates him back to the Merethic era. Could not find anything. The oldest recordings I could find on him were statues made in the first era. That's it. So I'm just guessing that he is in the first era. And also, likewise, Sheogorath, I don't know, like, there's no really information on when he got cursed either. But it is important to note that I theorize it was toward the late Merethic era or the dawn of the first era, because his curse specifically says that it implies of eras. And right now the Merethic era is pre-history. It's prehistory. So there's no recordings yet, really. It's just the prehistory part. And there's no real deep recording of anything. And so when it refers to an era, eras would have already had to have been recorded, so it must have been the first era that he got cursed, because that's the only era that it would really make any sense for the curse to be valid. And if y'all are unfamiliar, which I'm going to guess quite a few of you are, Jigalag is the Daedric Prince of Order. He has been around since the Merethic era. He was one of the original spirits that did not participate. And I'll explain more about him a little bit later on, because his whole spiel, like I said, happens at the late Merethic era. So that's all the technicalities out of the way. Just want to get those mainly out of the way first, just so y'all have an idea of what this world really looks like. But now, it's time to get into the major events and to discuss about what sub-creatures were around back then that are no longer around now. The creatures and sub-races of Tamriel. You have the High Elves, you have the Ayleids, you have the Snow Elves, you have the Wood Elves, you have the Sun Elves, which are the Chimer, which are no longer a thing anymore, and then you have the Dwemer, which are the Deep Elves. So you got like 6 different types of elves all over the place. And the Snow Elves, by the way, are also known as Falmer. How did we get all these different sub-races? It is suggested by many texts, many scholars in the Elder Scrolls, that they all originated from the Ultimer, which are the High Elves. But of course, it may not be true, because Bethesda loves the unreliable narrator, which also does make the lore a little bit convoluted and really difficult to research. But that's from what I could gather, that everybody agrees that the Ultimer were kind of the founding elven race. Then they all migrated and they evolved into their own species. But before they really, separated, there was at one point a dispute among the elven high elf people. And it caused the followers of Trinimac, which was the god of justice, I believe, of the elves. Him and his followers chose to leave the Somerset Isles, but there was also followers of the Daedra, Boethia, and they got into a little bit of a scuffle on their way of trying to leave. And I kid you not, this is actual lore and what happened. Boethia somehow manages to eat Trinimac, shat him out, and the poop became Malakath. Yeah. So, that's not the only thing either. All of Malakath's followers became the Orcs when he was transformed into Malakath. Then everybody basically left. The followers of Boethia became the Chimer, Sun Elves. The Sun Elves, they went to what is now known as Morrowind. But now, probably what are you all wondering? Well, when did the Age of Man come into place? And that happens directly next. The Edmorans came to what is now known as Skyrim. As we've established previously, this is where the Snow Elves live, also. And contrary to popular belief, there wasn't immediately any real battle. The Elves and Edmorans actually got along fine, for the most part, for quite a long time in history. Long enough to where Sarthal, that place you go for the College of Winterhold quest, that is why it's called the First City of Men, because it literally was the very first Tamrielic city of men to be ever constructed. And Sarthal is where Ysgramor and his kingdom from Etmora moved in. Now, it's important to note, as of right now, he doesn't have his 500 warriors yet. He has like a couple of warriors and most of his citizens. So most of these Nords are just regular citizens. That's important to note. But as they settle, build Sarthal, and they have good relations and trade with the Snow Elves, they find what is now known as the Eye of Magnus. And basically, the Snow Elves, unprovoked, for no reason, decided, we need to kill them. We can't have them have the Eye of Magnus, this power, we cannot have them have it, because they are filthy Edmorans that don't know any better. So we just need to kill them off, get them out of our land, and keep this power for ourselves. So Yeah, that's why the war started. It wasn't the Morans that caused it. It was actually the other party that caused it. Because, and their tactics, as far as I could read, they actually just walked in and backstabbed the Morans just to get the upper hand. As far as I know, that's how it went. And basically, Ysgramor, he managed to leave and go back to Atmora, and then he came back with his 500 Nordic warriors and just massacred the entire population of snow elves, to the point to where the snow elves actually had to fall back into their chantries and their little pocket on Solstheim, which, by the way, Solstheim isn't an island right now. It's actually still a part of Skyrim. And yes, for those of you that don't know, Solstheim used to be a part of Skyrim. However, that I'll explain a little bit later in this video. Yeah, Ysgramor managed to avenge his fallen family. And the Snow Elf Prince, however, he's the one that put up the most fight, because this is like the most powerful ice magic wizard, sorcerer, warrior the Snow Elves have. And their lineage has snow powers. They can manipulate the ice beneath their very feet, which is why they're like seen as royalty and all that. Snow Elves did eventually lose, sadly. The Snow Elf Prince got killed by an Atmoran child, believe it or not. He took pity on the Atmoran child and went to hug her, allegedly, and just got stabbed and died. Yeah. But the other Snow Elves, they would go into their secluded chantries, as we could see in the Dawnguard DLC, and then others sought refuge from the dwarves. However, the dwarves were like, hey man, look, you need to take this mushroom, yeah? It's gonna make you blind, but that's because we don't want you seeing any of our works, okay? We're extremely paranoid. And since the Snow Elves are desperate, they had no choice. And then they were enslaved, tortured, killed, and twisted into what we now know as the Falmer. In those caves, with those Tauruses, yep. Those were once Snow Elves. It's hacks. But yeah, that's what happened with them. Now it's time to explain the other sub-races, such as the Beast Folk. Now, what I could find on the Khajiits and Algonians, they were around during the Merethic era, obviously. Or they weren't necessarily called Khajiit and Algonians, but they were around back then. Along with the Fox people, there were several different species of, like, Dreths, and I think maybe a handful of gnomes. There were definitely nymphs. And also, in Cyrodiil, there were these, not bird people, but there was these apes, you know, that, like, wanted to mirror the, look of royalty and stuff. Not to mention, the Dreths actually had a kingdom unto themselves during this time, and they ruled, most of the land and the sea, where elves weren't occupied. Also, furthermore, the mud crabs were in the form of emperor mud crabs right now. And they were colossal in size and scope. But sadly, just like the majority of the other races I mentioned, they went extinct or slowly became extremely rare. And that's basically all of the races and the major events that has transpired in the early. Now, let's talk about the details of the gods and their avatars. Now, it's important to note that during the Merethic era, it's called the Merethic era, due to the fact that gods could walk freely on Tamriel, good or evil. Now, we established in the previous episode how their powers work. If they're from Oblivion or any other plane that isn't their own, their powers are halved in exchange for transport. That is still true. That's still true. And the gods of power are still fated and drained to the point to where they can't, like, physically manifest themselves without basically dying or becoming fully mortal at this point. So the reason why Daedra can make their physical forms is because they have enough power due to the fact that they didn't create and earn. They didn't squander their power, quote unquote, to make it. And the gods did. The Daedra. So basically, they require avatars. Basically, the gods will possess physical mortal bodies where they'll have the soul of the god that, you know, is the avatar of. But in terms of their flesh and mortal physical form and how they think, they are essentially a different person with the soul of a god. And there has been actually many different avatars in the games, like in Morrowind, for example. It's either Mara or Stendarr, but you can full-on speak with one of the avatars of the Eight Divines in Morrowind. Not only that, Tiber Septim is in Morrowind, and he is considered an avatar of Lorcan, which is known as a Shazarine. Of course, he's more or less not confirmed Shazarine. There is a Shazarine that is confirmed, but he's toward the end of this video. However, if you know, you know, and I hope you're getting excited for that. But if you don't know, don't worry. I'll be talking about him later. But for now, talking about why avatars are necessary. And it's like I said before. The Daedra cannot manifest physically without draining their powers outright. So they require these mortal champions in order to fully walk on Earth. Now, they can manipulate anything they want. This is where powers typically, they have a restriction, but at the same time don't. Because right now, the Daedra can just fully manipulate Nern because it's their creation. It's their domain. They can literally do whatever they want. They want to make a volcano appear randomly. They can. They want to just take all the grass away. They can. They basically are in creative mode right now, to sum it up. And these stuff like Oriel is definitely most likely a confirmed avatar of the Time God. And like all these different like physical forms, like we see Alduin, we see Tosun, those, like, I theorize are just avatars of the gods and not necessarily gods themselves, because as we established and I theorized, it's probably just 8 gods just depicted differently throughout many cultures. And these different avatars could just be their way of communicating with these different cultures. And it would make a lot of sense. It definitely would make a lot of sense. Like I said before, though, avatars are definitely a thing. Even if Bethesda has forgotten about them, they are definitely a part of the Elder Scrolls. And why certain deities like Oriel have physical representation. Because, I mean, they were avatars at one point. And they, quote-unquote, just ascended to godhood. Basically achieving Chem. And if you don't know what Chem is a thing in the Elder Scrolls where you can mantle a god, basically. Like, imagine in life, you basically act like the god you want to usurp, and you do it to a point to where people start forgetting the difference between you and that deity. That's literally how mantling works. And Tiber Septim did it. Tiber Septim mantled Lorcan, which was the trickster god, and he became the god of war in the Imperial Pantheon. However, in the Nordic Pantheon, he is referred to as Ysmir, I do believe. Ysmir or Shor, he's referred to. Either one of the two. But, yeah, that's pretty much how that works for Tiber Septim specifically. Of course, as I said, as of right now, Talos is not a thing in the Merethic era. He won't be a thing until, like, the second era. Definitely clarify it when we get to the first era, obviously. But for now, I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. Time to explain the Dragon War, which is what's happening. So right now, all the kingdoms are thriving. We got the Kingdom of Men, which is the Nords, and they have their dragon cult now. and they've been doing all that stuff with the dragons. And the Dragon War has begun, with many of Nord's rebelling against Alduin and his regime. And like we know, and like we established before, Alduin could be an avatar. He could be. He could just be an avatar. I know the games have portrayed him like, oh, the first son of Talos, but what you have to understand, he might be referring to his avatarhood. That might be what he's actually referring to. And it's pretty interesting to look at it that way, too. Because it opens a whole new world of possibilities of what Alduin really is. And so much stuff in the lore is so speculative just because it's the unreliable narrator. And Bethesda has done this on purpose to make a more believable world. However, it's pretty hard to say for a definitive fact if something has happened or not. That's why a lot of the time I'm saying this is my theory or this and that. And I hope it's not too confusing. But the lore is very confusing to piece together. Like, it really is. And I'm basically just saying it like it's written. Not really putting anything of my own in this, apart from some theories and this little quips that I'm throwing out here and there. But now the Dragon War has started. The Kingdom of Nord's elves are thriving in their own respective lands, and the Dragon Cult has rebelled, and there's now a civil war between dragons and men. And men for a long time actually were losing, and this is when Kine, not Kinnereth, but Kine, which is her Nordic representation, took pity on the mortals and gave them the ability to shout as dragons do. The logic of why she was the one that gave men the ability to shout like dragons is probably due to the fact that nature is her domain and dragons are considered a beast in, like, the whole biology of Elder Scrolls. Like, I guess that was a thought process back then. Of course, obviously, the meaning has probably been changed since then. But I can imagine that was the thought process going through the developers' minds. And it's important to note, too, that the shouts were actually changed. They didn't used to be tied to dragons at all. This was actually just something that Kine gave mortals to combat dragons. It wasn't nothing like, oh, they're in the dragon language. These shouts were capable of just manipulating the weather and earth. That's why they were a gift from Kine originally, and why it made sense back then, because basically she was giving mortals the ability to do what Kine already does, which is manipulate nature at will. Like, you could create enormous earthquakes, you could create powerful hurricanes, you could literally shout dragons from the skies, and it was awesome. But of course, Todd Howard and his watering down the culture of the game. And he nerfed all of the shouts to just lesser powers. And yes, the shouts are actually lesser powers than what they originally were supposed to be. And I'm pretty sure they were also in the Nordic tongue. They weren't in any dragon tongue. They were just like, you know, Nordic, because that's what they spoke, ancient Norse. But we got the new lore, which is quite literally just the dragon shouts. So now people can shout like dragons. Basically, a little bit of time has passed, and the humans have gotten the upper hand, but are still struggling. And it's important to note, at some point within this war, Merethic rebels during this Dragon War crisis. And this is where Merethic allegedly, you know, he's like the first Dragonborn. He's probably not. I wouldn't doubt if, like, he just made a deal with Hermaeus Mora to be a Dragonborn. Like, I wouldn't doubt if that's something he actually did. Which would be just hilarious, because that's not at all how the powers work. But you know, Bethesda doesn't care about their lore continuity, so whatever. I'm just here to read what is written. At any rate, that is my theory, by the way, that's not like actually written lore of like Merethic being transformed into a dragonborn via Hermaeus Mora. Just want to clarify that. But it is true that, you know, he rebelled against the dragons, obviously, and he was a disciple, well, is a disciple of Hermaeus Mora. Now we get to talk about the most epic thing I ever read about any character whatsoever. Basically, this is how Solstheim got made, okay? Well, actually, before I even explain this, let me explain something else. You know on Solstheim where, like, after you beat Stallroom quest for the Skull Village, and then that researcher comes and he's like, oh, there's a new ancient ruin that just got unearthed, and he, like, opened up a little ancient ruin where you find the jailer dragon priest boss? Well, it's important to note that that jailer was responsible for jailing Merethic. And that's why he's on the island, by the way. It's to keep Merethic in prison for all time, even after death. So, that's basically why he's there. But that's not even the craziest part. The craziest part about it, I don't know how true this is. I assume it's true. Just because everybody agrees it is, and from what I've read and stuff about this, it's like it seems to be true. But sometime during the Dragon War, Merethic rebels, and he fights against his dragon priest, his fellow dragon priest. Because if you didn't know, Merethic was indeed a dragon priest, and kind of still is. But the jailer and him are like the two most powerful dragon priests at this point in time. And they do battle atop this mountain. And I kid you not, this is how Solstheim is made. They fight with magic so damn vigorously and so just earth-poundingly catastrophic magic that they end up shattering a piece of Skyrim, ripping it from the mainland all the way out to where Solstheim is now. I kid you not, that's apparently how Solstheim became an island. It was the result of two dragon priests just flinging spells at each other so violently that it ripped the continent, like 25% of it, off. I just want you to know of how much, even by Elder Scrolls standards, how strong of a damn spellcaster you have to be to pull that off. That's near god tier level magic to pull that stunt off. For both parties involved, the jailer and Merethic. And I just feel like now Merethic's been nerfed in the game. They nerfed him just to, like, make him be beatable. Because it's like, how the hell are you even going to compete with this? I have no clue how to fight this. Well, whatever. But yeah, that's how Solstheim was made. Pretty amazing, right? Now, to continue the Dragon War, because it still ain't over, Merethic does eventually lose. And he's thought to be gone forever, but as we know, that's not the case if you played Skyrim's Dragon War DLC. The Dragon War still rages on. And as we all yet know, if you've beaten Skyrim, the three original masters of the voice, they fling Alduin into the future with an Elder Scroll, which, by the way, doesn't make any sense for the continuity of the previous lore, just because Elder Scrolls, for one, never had the capability of time travel. Apart from you just viewing the past, present, and future, it couldn't fling you into time. Like, that was never a thing in the previous games. Or lore, period. This is a new Skyrim thing. And not only that, Alduin, as we've described, is the god of time in the Nordic pantheon. He's literally the god of time in the Nordic pantheon. So the fact that flinging him forward in time and he couldn't just time travel back, considering time is his domain, period, and he could manipulate it any way he'd want, it just makes the plot non-existent, because what was stopping Alduin from literally going back in time to before they did that and stopping them? Nothing. Nothing was at all. So, yeah. Sorry if I just ruined Skyrim's main plot for you, but yeah, if you read any of the previous lore, you're just gonna be disappointed, because they nerfed everybody in Skyrim. They just really did. That's the Dragon War. The Dragon War is over. Yeah, they fling Alduin into the future, and then the dragons just give up, apparently, and they just F off to who knows where. But now, with all that out of the way, we're almost done. Almost. But we need to talk about one other person. Which is the greatest, most insane warrior to have ever walked Tamriel. Pelennel Whitestring. And his unexplained hatred for elves, regardless of their variety and race. If you are not familiar with this absolute narcissistic Giga Chad, everybody else was like either a narcissist or a Giga Chad. This guy's both. Okay, this guy is just straight up. And as far as I know, he is also a confirmed Shazari. Like, he is actually the avatar of Lorcan, the trickster god. Which makes a lot of sense, too, if you really think about it. Just why, like, he's kind of just insane. He does a lot in the Merethic era, okay? He does a lot. Like, a lot. He fails kingdoms, forms a kingdom of his own, gives them the middle finger, F off to God knows where, and then he kills more elves, and literally conquers another continent. The elves! Raven! And I'm not even kidding. This is all he does. He appeared toward the end of it. And he did all of this in like 30 years. Yeah. And for his other accomplishments, that's gonna have to wait to the next episode. But before we leave, there's also one other event. Jiggalag. Okay, so Jiggalag is not a narcissist. Well, I don't know about that. But anyway, he's definitely a Giga Chad, okay? Because this guy, for goodness sake, you're probably wondering, well, I've heard the story Sheorath was once Jiggalag and they transformed, but I don't know the specifics. You're about to know the specifics. Jiggalag is the Daedric Prince of Order, like I've previously stated, but the reason for his curse is pretty gnarly. So this guy single-handedly made every single Daedra that was around at this point in time literally piss themselves in terms of just sheer power. This guy was so strong, his empire was so devastatingly powerful that his dominion was spreading not just within his own plane of oblivion, but to other planes of oblivion. This guy, Jiggalag, he was like, you know what? I want the entire cosmos to be my domain of order. Let me go beat the hell out of all of my other Daedra kin. Hold my beer. And he does just that. He starts just molly-whopping his other Daedra buddies, just straight up smacking Dagon people. And conquering and corrupting and literally terraforming other planes of oblivion that are not his domain. And as we previously stated, if you travel to a different plane that is not your domain, your power is halved. That means this guy was insanely strong. Even for a Daedra standard, this guy just topped everything, which is why he is still regarded to this day as the most powerful Daedra that has ever existed in the Elder Scrolls, period. This is why all the other Daedra cursed him. And I say all of them because this guy beat the brakes off the Daedra realm so bad that all of the other Daedra that normally on any other day have disagreements with each other and would not really typically work all together, all like 12 of them at this point are like, you know what, I hate you, but I hate Jiggalag even more. And they say, the feeling's mutual. Let's gang up and all make a curse spell on them. So, I kid you not, all 12 of them, like, got in a semicircle and chanted a curse so powerful that it could curse Jiggalag. Think about that for a moment. All the Daedra had to literally do a ritual spell together in order to curse one Daedra. One Daedric prince. Just one. And that was Jiggalag. Which they succeeded. Cursing him with madness. Which is the exact opposite of order. And he would be transformed into Sheogorath, seemingly permanently. However, at the end of every era, Jiggalag would return for one day to conquer the entire realm that was turned into the Shivering Isles. Only for Jiggalag to turn back into the Mad Prince, for madness to reign again, and for him to literally rebuild his realm from scratch. Yeah. I think I covered everything in the Merethic era that happened. Like I said in the very beginning, everybody had smoke, okay? Everybody wanted a piece of everybody. From mortal races to ruling deity gods, everybody was like, nah, bro, I got the blickies. Just every 2 seconds, some war was happening. And I don't even think I covered all of the wars that happened. I'm pretty sure there were like 2 other wars. Like, that's how violent this era was. Like, gosh. But yeah, if you enjoyed, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like if you want to see more, and comment down below what you think. Thank you guys so much for watching. And remember, trying to hit 100 subscribers by the end of the year. And I thank all of you for your support. Also, have a Discord. So check out the community post on my channel. Go to my channel, go to the community tab, and it should be right there. There's a Megatron meme. Please consider joining Discord. This server, you can talk to me directly, and we can post about funny memes. We can talk about more in depth about the Elder Scrolls, or really any type of gaming, new and old. Doesn't matter what game it is. And I hope to see you there. Again, thank you all so much for watching. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace out. Have a very wonderful day. And one last thing, and how could I forget? The giant emperor crabs were definitely a thing, and they did a massacre war with the Dreads at some point. I hope this information enlightens your day.